The classic cybernetic model, a sender transmitting a discrete data packet to a receiver, is seductively simple. But as linguist Mikhail Makarov notes, you cannot not communicate. Accounting for context and identity, this clean transmission arrow breaks into a continuous, entangled feedback loop. Mapping this dynamic, continuously negotiated sociocultural act requires a completely different analytical toolkit than a simple data pipeline. That toolkit begins with pragmatics. This discipline studies how physical context and a speaker's intent determine meaning far beyond the literal dictionary definitions of words. Parallel to it stands discourse analysis. This field examines how our language choices are constrained by social institutions and how our words express the specific values of those communities. To understand how these frameworks decode professional and academic life, we have to rebuild our model of communication from the ground up. We will start at the smallest unit, the initial human impulse to speak. From there, we will examine the contextualized event where that speech occurs, before zooming out to the macrostructures that govern how whole communities operate. Stripping away the illusion of data transfer allows us to expose the invisible structural rules that actually dictate human interaction. Every spoken sentence begins with a human need. Long before a word is selected, a communicative goal is formed. An applicant needs to persuade a hymen manager, a researcher to express collegiality, a salesperson to negotiate disagreement. This underlying goal dictates every linguistic choice. It selects the vocabulary, calibrates the grammar, sets the tone, and determines when the speaker should employ total silence. The purpose is the engine that orchestrates the entire design of the message. But speakers never form these goals in a vacuum. Mikhail Bakhtin identified addressivity. Any utterance is oriented toward a specific receiver. A speaker anticipates a listener's agreement or objection. This expected reaction shapes the words before the message lands. We are not the biblical Adam, naming objects for the first time. Every sentence we construct builds on previous speech and is engineered to trigger a future reply. Communication succeeds when it triggers the intended, active, responsive understanding in the listener, not simply when data is received. When addressivity collides with a specific time and place, it forms a communicative event where linguistic form and action merge. These events operate within restrictive systems. As Michel Foucault observed, invisible rituals dictate who can speak, permitted gestures, and how words are defined. You see this in university lectures, the cross-examination of a witness, or a formal boardroom negotiation. The communicative event is the localized container where a speaker's goal meets the listener's addressivity, heavily constrained by social rituals. To categorize the millions of communicative events happening daily, we have to zoom out. These individual boxes cluster into massive networks, discourse communities. Discourse communities differ from simple proximity-based speech communities. As John Swales defines them, these groups are bound by shared public goals and dedicated mechanisms for participation and feedback. Members share epistemic beliefs. They collectively agree on what constitutes valid knowledge, what they take to be true, and the conventions required to prove those truths to their colleagues. An individual utterance achieves power only if it adheres to the collective goals and processing needs of the broader discourse community. When a discourse community repeatedly faces the same communicative need, they standardize their response. Over time, this conventionalized event hardens into a genre. This document details John Swales' metaphors for genre, frames for action, providing guiding principles to achieve a purpose, and institutions, representing typified group processes. Swales writes, these recurrent communicative events are the genres that orchestrate verbal life, linking tradition with innovation. This PhD dissertation abstract title page demonstrates these rules. The strict formatting, numbering, and institutional hierarchy are genre constraints that dictate exactly how research must be presented for the community to accept it. Expert members of a community don't simply follow these rules. They exploit these constraints, using required formats to achieve their own private communicative goals. Meaning emerges from the active, goal-directed navigation of genres within a discourse community, a continuous negotiation that discourse analysis allows us to finally decode.